which is one of the few times in this car that I've actually been relatively pleased with my pace.
Well, nice work. You say you've only relatively one of the few times. You're currently fourth in this championship. You've got plenty of competition still to go in the final round. Oliver Gibson, Scott Bugner, and Lee Pearcey all pretty close to you in terms of the points. How would you just quickly look back on your season overall?
As I say, I think just some of the rounds I've been up there, and then some I've been completely off the pace. It's one of those. I don't know if it's a setup thing or lack of practice, but just sometimes you feel like you're right up there with the quick guys, and then all of a sudden, other rounds I've sort of been struggling to sort of break the top 7 or 8. So it's a little bit. It might just be not used to these open wheelers and stuff like that. But no, all in all, it's been lots of good racing, lots of good battling. Quite happy with any time in the top 5 at the end of a championship. I think you've got to be fairly happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely, and a great performance in qualifying here at Silverstone. I wish you the best luck for the racing action coming up next. Thank you once again, Andy Carroll. Okay, we move on then to the man in P2 in that session, a 2-minute 2.6. It is Paul Laramie. How are you? How are you there, Paul?
Yeah, very good. Thanks. Very good. It's a good session. A bit off the pace I was doing in the practice server earlier in the week, but the track was, like you say, progressing quite a bit through the session. To get to the sub 202 with a fully gripped up track, so it should bode well for the race.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what also bodes well for the race is just how close everyone seems to be towards the end. As you rightly say, the track ramping up, conditions getting better. I think everyone's going to be in the mix. Silverstone, a track that you're pretty happy with?
Yeah, driven it many times, certainly in the sim and in the real life, so it's a track I'm pretty happy with. So these drive pretty well around it, so yeah, it's a good track.
Yeah, they certainly look like it. On your screens, folks, is a Hyundai. Fear not, we've not changed cars mid-weekend. We're going to be staying in the Formula 4s, and yeah, as you say, it's going to be a good weekend. What are you more a fan of, your sprint races or your longer feature races then, heading into Silverstone?
I prefer the sprint racing personally, but I think the longer ones give a bit of a different. It all depends what happens early on in the longer formats. If you get tangled up in the longer formats, it can feel a bit of a trawl trying to catch back up again. But if you get a good start, then it can make all the difference. But in the shorter ones, it's kind of short burst.
Yeah, absolutely, and well, it's certainly a good start to this weekend, though. As I say, with a P2 in qualifying, certainly no mean feat, especially with how competitive it was towards the end. And then I'm going to ask you the same question. Looking back towards the season, it's been haven't been that kind of much involved in kind of how things have gone throughout the season. Have you been quite pleased with how your Formula 4 season running's gone?
It's been very up and down, from being early on in Snetterton where I had the pace but just made my own errors. From the front from leading the race to spinning on my own, to winning a race at Thruxton. Then I divot back, so I was off for a couple of weeks, hence why couple of weeks not really raced. So I raced last week and won the feature race, which was good. So it's been up and down, but overall enjoyable.
Well, I'm certainly glad to hear that you're making a recovery and you're back into racing form, Paul. I'm going to let you get ready for the sprint race coming up in just a moment, but best luck out there. And then we come to our man on pole then. It will be a Mr. Scott Bugner. Scott Bugner there with an immense amount of pace. I don't think we got a graphic for you, but that doesn't matter all that much. Scott there in the mid-pack throughout most of that session, but then just towards the end, you seem to really push on. Did you have fun out there?
I did, yeah, no, it was good. It's I think I just timed it right where the track was getting grippier and ramping up, and I just put a lap in. I think I was the first person to take the flag, so I took my fastest lap right on the last lap where the track had gone up to 100%. So, but yeah, no, it's good. It's hard work with the 33 kilos of weight on, but yeah, it's good.
I was going to say, yeah, you got plenty of ballast in this championship and going into this round, rather. That's partly down to just how well you're doing in this championship. Currently second in the running overall. Bit of a gap to Chris Blakey out in front. He seems to be cruising quite comfortably at the top, but you got the likes of Oliver Gibson and Andy Carroll and Lee Pearcey in the mix here as well, who are hot on your heels, would you say? So how does that affect your kind of mindset heading into this Silverstone weekend?
to be fair, I don't really think about it in that way. I just go out and enjoy it and see where I can get. I think, I missed 2 or 3 rounds this season. I was leading the championship before I missed a round, so it's a shame about that. But my racing, real life racing, got in the way and bits and bobs. But Chris has done really well, and thanks to Andy because he's helped me out with setups throughout this season. But the cars have been better than what I thought. But I'll be glad to jump into some something with a roof on it. Would be lovely.
Definitely front wheel drive as well, I'm guessing.
That would be perfect, but I don't think the next championship is front wheel drive, so I've got to be a bit patient for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, just something with a roof on it. I mean, I didn't think I'd be anywhere near the front in these, and then leading the championship by like 30 points before I missed the 2 rounds in the middle. But yeah, no, just go out with a bang, and I don't ever wish anything bad on anyone. But if Chris has a bad one, you never know what can happen. But my aim would be to help Andy get into the top 3 in the championship, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I wish you the best of luck with that, Scott. Get ready for your sprint race now and have a good time out there. Thank you very much, and congratulations on pole once more.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
There he is.
Oh.
You need to win all 3 races and get all fastest laps, Scott, I think.
Easy.
Doing them.
No pressure.
Andy's already done the maths for him.
After winning all 3. Okay, no pressure then. Yeah.
And that. And
Is
you
that
could
with
do
Chris finishing second though?
You could do a Chris having about 2 DNFs as well.
Well, Andy, as we know that we get away with all of the contracts
yes.
and things and bits and bobs, if you want to outbreak,
Yeah. Okay. I'll
He's going to bend me off.
I think this is going to be good. This is going to be a proper go-kart.
Good.
I think.
we can blame the ping as well, can't we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Thing is,
actually,
I've got the
Neck
inside
road.
line into turn 1. I could just go straight.
Oh, good lad. Team
I'm
orders and beer payments are ready.
I have just
Stand up
calibrated my
Prost.
pedals. Right, I've just calibrated my pedals, so if I hit anyone, sorry.
Did you get my PayPal details, Chris?
Yes, mate. Yes, yeah. It's all sat waiting.
Okay, ping it over after race 2.
Will do.
Oh, my
No
screen's
touching,
just said
but-
it. My screen's just come up with a message saying it's going to go into pixel refresh.
Aye.
I've got no
That's-
LED.
Yeah,
Every-
I was gonna say that
Every 4 hours it does a pixel refresh.
drives you mad.
That'll make it more difficult.
Have I got fuel in? Yes.
Right, Chris, you need to get a good start because if you don't, we're probably going to come together in T1, just so you know.
lovely stuff. Thank you.
Mate, there's 7 of us, 8 of us. We can't hit each other. Come on.
Oh, don't. The
Come
less
on.
cars, the more chance they're kind of like.
Yeah.
It's like law of attraction. The less cars there is, the more chances they just draw to each other.
It's
So.
just going to be a 6-string race, isn't it? We're just going to keep overtaking each other.
Yep.
Oh, these softs are going to be buggered by the end of the race, boys.
Good luck.
100%. Good luck, one and all.
Good luck, everyone.
Like all.
I was interested.
Interesting's a word for it. Bloody hell. Just Scott, you after that like DNF thing, it was pretty fucking close.
Yeah, I felt bad because I don't know what happened. I just turned right and I hit the back of Paul and I was like, no! And then he spun it and I felt really bad.
And then all wiped me out.
Yeah, I couldn't really do much about that.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I
I
literally
don't-
just hit your rear wheel, but it's like, yeah, that's my fault. Sorry. You know when you think you've got enough to do the switchback and you don't?
And here we go then. Let's hear from some of our drivers after race one. What a race it was as well. I think my throat's already sore just after the brilliant action that we had. And a bit of an unexpected podium sitter, and at least a new experience for myself. Rich Hayden, P3. What a drive.
Yeah, hello, my name's Rich.
Great. Yeah, no, genuinely. Really nice, really exciting stuff out there for you. Rich, I didn't know you had this pace.
I didn't. I was lucky.
It's like interviewing Kimi Räikkönen.
I literally did. I think I
Lecker.
did. I don't know, 20 laps of practice because I didn't think I was going to be racing this evening. But qualified 6th or something like that, massively off the pace, and then obviously there was a crash at the beginning of the race, which I was quite lucky enough to get through. And then fortunately for me, Lee lost the back end as well, so I got through then. Couldn't hold off Scott. He was too quick for me, as usual. But other than that, yeah, quite a good race.
Yeah, and surely that pace, especially late on into the stint there as well, where you're just on merit, you were there with the leaders. That must give you that extra confidence heading into the rest of the race weekend now that you've got a bit more than just 20 laps of practice under your belt.
Well, let's just see if my luck holds up, mate. So this is reverse grid, isn't it, from quali? So I'm second on the grid for this. So let's go forward and see what comes.
Yeah, we'll be looking forward to that, and we can either. I mentioned to Steve then I don't have a timings order for tonight, so we can either build some space now, or we're just going to move through the interviews quite quickly.
Just move through the interviews. I've got the time in here, so we've got a good 7 minutes left, 7.5 minutes. So we're all good.
Okay, cool. In which case, then, thank you very much, Rich. Best of luck there for race 2 coming up in just a moment, and then we move on.
Yes, my name's Rich. I like racing. Thank you.
And then we move on to hopefully not a Muppet, not as in idiot, as in a literal character from the Muppets who we just interviewed, by the sounds of things. Kermit the Frog, I think. Andy Carroll running in P2 in that race. Then it was a decent qualifying, and you followed that on with a great race, Andy.
Yeah, got benefited from Paul and Scott, I think, having a bit of a contact on the first lap, and then just sort of managed to also I think benefit. I think Lee obviously had something happen in that final couple of corners, and it was just sort of nice and relaxed after that. And then saw Scott with catching everyone. I thought if he can gap Richard a little bit, then I'll sort of let him past, because he's technically, I think, still in with a shot at the championship, but he's I don't know. Chris was a few places back, so that might have helped him a bit, but we'll see at the end of the night, I guess.
So some lovely sportsmanship there. It seemed to just kind of happen out of the blue, really, when we saw the overtake done. So that could well explain it, because you did have a nice comfortable margin in that race.
Yeah, about 4.5 seconds, I think. So I was just sort of last couple of laps, just sort of lifting off down the straight and stuff, just to see. So I wasn't going to do it unless he had sort of enough of a gap between him and Rich that I could drop into without risking too much. So just saw that he had about just over a second, I think, on the coming into the last lap. So I thought, I'll just ease up and let him by right at the end there, just so that he can hopefully crack on and maybe push Chris a bit more.
Well, absolutely. As I say, that is excellent sportsmanship there. So well done to Andy Carroll. And are you by any chance either? I assume that's your air conditioning running in the background, or are you just in the eye of the hurricane?
That's my my fan. I have two fans mounted above my monitor that I can turn on and off.
I completely don't blame you there.
It's a bit. It was getting slightly warm with Lee chasing me down, so I thought I'll put the fans on a bit.
Yeah, no, it is absolutely boiling. I've not gone for the fan strategy. I've gone for the beer strategy. That's what I've gone for. Yeah,
Okay,
it's a good one, I must add. But I'm glad to hear that you're not in the middle of a hurricane there. So thank you very much, Andy, and best luck for the reverse grid sprint coming up in just a moment.
Yes.
And now just one more driver to hear from, and it is Scott Bugner. Had immense pace in qualifying, and in the end, it was a race win. But it wasn't quite that simple, was it, Scott?
It wasn't, no. Yeah, I mean, obviously with the weight, I think Paul just got a better launch. He's got better exits out the corners, and we went side by side through Brooklyn. As we went into Luffield, I don't know. It was my fault. I don't know if there's a bit of elastic in or something from the lag or something. I don't know, but I just turned in, and the next minute his car was right in front of me, and I hit his rear wheel, and it spun me round, him round, and I think Chris round, which I felt really bad for. But then it was just, push through and see what we can do, and managed to get back up to second, and Andy was really nice on that last lap and let me through. So if I can't win the championship in the next race and I'm out of contention, then I'll be helping him try and get into the top 3 in the championship for the last race. Very
nice indeed. As I was saying to Andy then, some lovely sportsmanship in this, our final round of the Formula 4 action. I think I'm going to let you go and get ready for the second race there, Scott. We don't need to fill the time necessarily, so no need to give you the added stress of trying to get the car ready in 3 seconds.
No problem. Thank you very much.
So, no problem at all, Scott. Have fun out there.
Cheers.
So we've heard from our drivers now, and we're going to be heading into the second sprint race of the evening. Similar format to race 1, only difference being it's a reverse grid. So it's going to be the same race duration, same number of drivers obviously, but a bit of a turnaround in the order. Those drivers who perhaps finished a little bit lower than they would like to are now going to start right at the top end of the action. So it could be a crucial lap 1. It always provides some interesting action, shall we say.
Got
Hello.
Right, let's see if we can get through lap 1 without any crashes then.
Yeah, my bad.
Here we go. 3.5 minutes.
Well, soft held on more than I thought they were going to. I thought they were going to be destroyed by halfway through the race.
That very last lap it dropped.
Yeah, that last lap was so awful, wasn't it?
I spun on the second lap, so I'm braking, so tyres have dropped too much.
Don't think I had wings left at the end of that. They were both red.
Going side by side through Magus and Beckett saying fun. I ain't going to do that again.
No, don't do that.
Is that me and you, Scott? Is it?
Yeah.
I was like, he's brave.
I thought I was brave until I was halfway through, and then it was squeaky bum time. I thought me and Paul were going to do the whole first lap side by side, to be fair.
We got quite far round.
Yeah, we got about 5 corners in. Yeah, no, that was totally my fault. I do apologise.
That's alright. That's what I got you, because I braked you into the first part of that.
Nominal time penalty, 30 championship point reduction.
Yeah, but remember, it's Team Carbide, Rich. We don't get penalties.
That's right, yeah.
Transfer the penalty to Chris.
Yeah.
That'll do.
DSQ.
Right, boys.
Yeah.
Good luck.
One and all.
Guys.
I owe you many beers, Mr. Laramie.
Right. I better do it on that time.
I have to ask Chris, where did the Sparrow nickname come from?
Right, real good question, because that was given to me by Rich. And
Okay, well, that's getting the post-race interviews.
Well, yeah, well, it's not. The livery's black and gold, so he went, Sam Sparrow, black and sings black and gold. He said, would you not have got that? I said, not in a million years, mate. So,
That's
yeah,
brilliant.
that's just where that came from. Nothing interesting in the slight, apart from Rich's sixth sense of humour.
Well, let's have a chat with our drivers after the second sprint race of the evening. Certainly full of carnage. Let's get our drivers' points of views on it then. So, coming home in P3, it was Paul Laramie. That saved me just in the nick of time. Thank you there, Steve. I completely forgot already. That's concerning. Anyway, Paul, P3 in the end. Happy with that one then? It was certainly carnage. So, how did you navigate your way through that race?
Yeah, I had a fairly decent start. I was going through Maggots, Beckett's and into Chapel, and had John and Lee in front. But I had such an overspeed that I had to get onto the brakes in Chapel, which spun me round. Because otherwise I'd have rear-ended Lee. And it was just working my way back through then and just try and be consistent, get the lap times in. And towards the end, it's obviously Chris, the teammate, so he's fine for the championship. So thought I'd return the favour that Andy did to Scott in the first race. Try and get the points to Chris. So yeah, overall it was a good race.
Very considerate of you indeed, Paul. So, brought an end to our sprint racing action now. We've got the 30-minute feature coming up next. Bit of a change up in your mindset heading into that race, I assume. Obviously, longer format. Changes in setup and looking at your tyre strategy potentially heading into the feature?
Yeah, generally in this championship so far I've started on the soft and gone onto the medium so I can run the soft as long as possible. But these softs, 15 minutes is a stretch.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Around you go, but we'll see. But setup-wise, no real change to the setup, more just which tyre I start on.
Interesting. Well, I look forward to seeing what you decide in the end there, Paul. Congratulations on P3 and all the best for the endurance coming up next.
Thank you very much.
Move on then to P2, and it will indeed be Chris Blakey. I can remember that one at least because I'm rather drawn to the livery, somewhat like a Sparrow.
Yeah, black and gold.
Of course, that's where the nickname comes from. But P2 in the end there, Chris currently leading the championship by a massive, comfortable margin.
Not a massive, comfortable margin. It's one of those things, if it could all go right or it could all go wrong. And the way Scott's been on form, so there's been absolutely. So it's.
You're completely right. You know what? I apologize. Yeah. I've been completely out of VRRC comms, and I forgot. Yeah, we got the feature with more points, haven't we? So
fair play to to Scott. It is this close, and he has dropped 2 rounds where I only dropped 1 round. So if it could have made all of them, it would have been his easily, I think. But we've had some good racing. That's all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's always good when the commentator has to be corrected by the drivers. That is a good. It's a good thing that this isn't broadcast.
It's a rare thing driving knows where he is these days.
But yeah, so looking on to that feature race, then I'm going to ask you a similar question. Got to think wisely about those softs on the mediums, and obviously, as Paul said, the softs looking like they're not quite lasting 15 minutes, are they?
It's just that last lap. That last lap of they really do drop off an absolute cliff, and it's. Do you risk an extra lap? Do you just pit earlier and then take the hit? Oh, yeah. And I must admit, I haven't done any running around here in the medium, so
that was going to be my next question. I was going to ask you to reveal your strategy or reveal all, but have you at least got an idea of what you're going to be looking into on the mediums? But in which case, then I suppose we best let you get ready and enjoy some endurance racing, then, Chris.
It'll be a surprise for all of us. So let's see what happens.
Best of luck out there, Chris. Congratulations on P2.
Cheers, mate.
And then we move on to a bit of a familiar sight at this point this weekend. As it turns out, definitely very much in the Mixed Championship, which is what I've maintained for the entire recording so far, is Scott Bugner, who once again takes race victory. Congratulations, Scott.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yep, certainly a bit of a chaotic one at the start of that race. So in fact, throughout a lot of the race, it was a bit chaotic, wasn't it, Scott?
It was, but I was very lucky that time that I just kind of just drove round and just watched everyone fall off around me nicely, and then yeah, it was just kind of head down, and I kind of knew that Paul was probably going to give Chris the place, but fair play, that's how you do it. You've got to get the points where you can, and I think he's pretty much sewn it up now. I think I'd need him for DNF, and I have to win this race, but I don't know if it's double points, so it might be all different. I can't remember, but I'm not going to think about it. I'm just going to go out, do what I've done, and enjoy the last round.
Yeah, certainly is all about having fun and enjoying it out there, and I'm going to join you on there on yeah, I vaguely think I have an idea of knowing what's going on. We'll head into the next season of commentary, and I promise I'll be a bit more professional and more in the know. But yeah, best luck out there, Scott. Let's see if you can make it a hat trick tonight.
I think it'll be hard, but I think at the minute it's all to do with survival. I think because these cars are so light on the rear that as soon as you hit a curve or run wide, they want to snap. So I mean, we're going to enjoy it. We're going to get our elbows out, and if we can get 3 out of 3, then I'm sure that I'll be pushing to do that.
Well, wish you the best of luck in that, Scott. You've put on a great show for us so far tonight. I'm sure it will be the same in the 30-minute race coming up next. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I can actually, well, I suppose you're still here. We've brought an end to the. How I'm going to assume Moses is just because of your parting of the drivers. I'm going to assume that's where that comes from.
Jack Smith basically put it on there because every single time cars are spinning in front of me, I was just managing to miss them by basically millimeters. They were just kind of spearing off, and I was just like, "Oh, thank you, thank you."
Fantastic stuff. Thank you for letting me know that. Just as I thought, as I say, enjoy yourself out there,
Thank you.
Scott. So that brings an end to our interviews, and now we run into the longest race of the evening so far. We're going to have a bit of a break before that, as we don't have all our drivers out on track just yet. But yeah, into the feature race we go.
That's quite the first race, Andy.
Well, I didn't think it'd make a difference, but you never know.
Hey,
If he'd lost by a point or two,
yeah. I was very happy to see Mr. Larry put the fastest lap in of like a 2 or something like that. I was like, that's out of reach. Good lad. So that's a good time, that is, boy.
I think you've won it now anyway, haven't you?
yeah,
We think so.
yeah.
I think so.
Oh well, let's
Unless he takes out the whole field and gets points taken off.
I'm going to poot around at the back and just.
I bet you don't.
Yeah.
I bet Rich can still hit you.
I didn't hit anybody in that race.
Oh, did you not? I thought you, in a nice way, not you, but I thought you hit Chris. That's why he went off.
No, he hit me.
Oh.
Well, I don't.
Well, that could be points on the championship, so we'll see what happens.
I shall watch the replays. Oh, can you do the replays as well, Chris, tonight, please, mate?
No. Oh, they haven't recorded that.
Oh dear. Lipping it. Right.
Is Lee back in, or is Lee in? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm back in. See if it works now. I don't know what's going on tonight.
It's close between you and Andy. You're joint on points.
Oh, are we?
Yeah.
And I've had my worst round ever
And
tonight.
you're both 5 points behind Ollie Gibson.
Oh.
Ooh,
Yeah,
one of you can clinch third.
Will my stuff work?
Well, what does so?
Be on the drop scores on it.
Yeah, I'm just looking now. My drop score is the same as what I've got so far. So this is everything I
These
get
drop
here
scores
is
didn't
going to.
start, so
Again, I think it just comes down to might be a straight shootout here.
Mate, I can't believe what a difference it makes when you redo your pedals. Oh my god. I cannot get them right. They're all over the place. I either can't stop or lock up.
Right then.
Good luck.
Good
all.
luck, gents.
Good luck, everybody.
Yep.
Enjoy
The grid.
the last fucking race of episode.
last race of the fucking fours.
I've enjoyed them up until tonight. Hate them tonight.
Yeah, good luck, one and all.
Good luck, everyone. first tyre.
Well done, chaps. Final race done.
Right, jump start.
Yeah, just a tiny bit.
Just a little
Just
bit.
small.
Small jump start.
I tell you, done you a favour. The pit lane gives you the fastest lap of the race if you drive straight through it, doesn't it?
Oh.
I thought that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a good pit lane to have a drive through.
Anybody there?
Yeah.
Yes.
All
We're all
right.
still alive.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
How many of my spins did you catch on camera?
Not too many, you're lucky. Have you just nominated yourself a driver of the round, effectively? Is that why you're in here?
I just thought I'd come in and say how did it go?
Yeah, overall, I think really well. Steve did an immense job on camera ops and everything. No, it was you wouldn't know he's new to it. So
He dragged you along, has he?
absolutely, he's done a really good job out there. So yeah,
Good, well
looking
done.
forward to